Welcome, everybody. Let's get started because I know you're all anxiously waiting to hear what this incredible faraway destination is all about. Just a couple of quick words about Wheel and Anchor for those of you who are new to us. I see a whole bunch of names on the webinar, not all familiar to me. So this is a community of travelers from all across Canada that we started putting together just about exactly 5 years ago. In fact, it was June of 2018 when the whole idea of Wheel and Anchor was born. And the concept is, it follows on the heels of the 30 some odd years that I have spent around the travel business, bringing Canadians to all parts of the world. And what I found in the course of all those decades of organizing travel is that, like-minded people have a great time together. You can see some of the pictures here, the smiles on everybody's faces. We just have a great time because we all have something in common in terms of the way we look at travel, the way we look at the world, and the way we relate to each other. There's a certain sense of, when our trips begin and everybody's introducing themselves for the first time, and you realize that almost everybody is Canadian, and it just you're allowed to let your guard down a little bit, and we create some great friendships also out of our trips, and that's kind of the hidden mission that we have. Obviously, it's about becoming well-traveled and well-connected. I mean, that is my goal because I think that you can agree with me that if you are somebody who is well-traveled, you have a different you have a different set of sort of degree of wisdom, I suppose, about the world and humanity and everything that's going on. And let's face it, there's all kinds of crazy things going on. So that's really what our vision is. It's about great travel experiences, but it's about something more than that. It's about becoming connected and meeting other like-minded people. That's what we're all about here at Wheel and Anchor. So let's get into the meat and potatoes. As usual, my name is Gordon Drager. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm joined by my amazing team of trip specialists. We have Barb with us on the webinar this morning. Good morning, Barb. And Paula is probably hiding there in the background somewhere. All of these fine women are my colleagues who work with all of our members to make sure you get to travel to where you want to go and to get all of your questions answered. Just a bit of a quick touching on what the concept of a LiveAway is, particularly if you're not familiar with them, if you're new to Wheel and Anchor. The idea of a LiveAway is essentially you go to a place and you spend a longer period of time. So you feel like you're actually living there. And that starts with kind of like a couple of weeks away. And so we do these LiveAway programs in different parts of the world, from Thailand and Bali to around the Mediterranean, Cyprus and Malta and Sicily. And this year we're going to be doing Sardinia and Corsica as well. Also in central Italy, in Tuscany, we have it's actually going to be a sojourn program starting next year. And then we have them as well in Madeira, obviously in the Atlantic Ocean, and now here. And so by spending a longer period of time and giving you flexibility on the type of things that you can do, you can have the experience like you actually went there to live for a while. This is a short LiveAway, this program here, partly because it's a new program, and having visited both of these islands at the latter part of last year in anticipation of developing this LiveAway, I sort of wanted to get a sense of, is there enough here for people to do for a prolonged period of time? And when I get into the nitty-gritty, you'll get a sense of it. There's actually a lot to do. And yet I think that 2 weeks is an ample period of time to get to know these amazing islands, and potentially combine this with, for example, our LiveAways in Thailand or Bali. And I'll explain all about that in a minute, because you can actually get between the two pretty easily. So that's what the LiveAways are all about. Talking about this program in particular, as I mentioned, these are the Mascarene Islands. So you can see on the little globe here, we find ourselves about 1,000 kilometers in the case of Réunion off of Madagascar. So in the middle of the southern Indian Ocean, quite far away from everything, which is why most Canadians haven't visited or haven't even thought of visiting these islands. On the other hand, for European travelers, because it's a similar time zone, these are quite popular destinations, in particular Mauritius, and I'll explain about that in a minute. And so they are it's a trek to get there, I'll be honest. We're talking about, the equivalent of Southern Africa. So you get an idea of how far, but there are good connections. You can fly actually via Paris directly to both Mauritius and Réunion. So a hop over to Paris and then down. And you can also fly nonstop between Réunion and Bangkok, which is about the same length of flight as between Toronto and Paris. So just to give you a sense of the geography that we're talking about here. The first of the weeks will be in Mauritius. So this is the island of Mauritius that you see here. The capital is Port Louis, but we're going to be staying in the beautiful west coast in a place called Flic. And from here, offering a set of different trips to different parts of the island. The main city, of course, as I mentioned, Port Louis, to the beautiful eastern islands at Île aux Cerfs, to the Black River Gorge, this is the sort of the mountainous part of Mauritius, to Mahabur, which is the historical center of the island. And there's a number of other activities that we have sort of in this area. Plenty of things to do for the week. The second week is here on Réunion, and Réunion is a department of France. So it's basically like a province of France. This makes it the southernmost point of the European Union, if you will, because this is actually France, this little island of Réunion. And although it's only about a 40-minute flight away from Mauritius, completely different. So Mauritius is surrounded by some of the most beautiful turquoise water and pristine white beaches that you will find anywhere. And otherwise, and then there's some mountainous formations and so on. I mean, both of these have volcanic origins, but Mauritius was much longer ago, and so there's nothing remotely active about any, and the mountains on Mauritius are not nearly as high. Réunion, on the other hand, is all about the volcanoes. So the center of the island, you have a couple of major volcanoes, that the highest one being the Piton des Neiges, which is here by the town of Cilaos, which is over 3,000 meters or over 10,000 feet high, and actually snow-capped. So it's interesting, you're in a tropical zone here, but you've got a snow-capped volcano in the middle. So you can imagine the scenery is just breathtaking. So we're going to be staying here down on the south end of the island in a little town. It's actually a pretty big town called Saint Pierre. And this gives us great access to the sort of volcanic regions of the island, Piton de la Fournaise and Piton des Neiges, as I mentioned, and Piton du Maido, but also a lovely beach as well that's surrounded by a reef. So you get an interesting dichotomy there. So let me go into a little bit about the things that we're going to do and where we're going to be staying in both of these wonderful islands. And again, the pictures just, they do all the talking. The water is incredible. We have two different accommodations that are very close to one another in Mauritius. The first one is called Sugar Beach Resort, which is, well, again, the picture does all the talking for it. It's right on the western coast of the island, a beautiful, not too big, fairly modestly sized resort style property. And you can just picture yourself in one of those lawn chairs in one of those chaise lounges on the beach. The water is so clear and so wonderful. You'll think there's no better place to be in the middle of February. And it's just a very cozy resort style place. As you can see, the rooms are all lovely, sort of contemporary, modern, tropical style of architecture. And some of the rooms obviously have a view out to the beach and a little bit of living area. We have a couple of different categories of rooms available in Mauritius. We also have this lovely, it's more of an apartment hotel type of a thing, again, adjacent to the beach, very close to Sugar Beach. This is called Cap West. Here we have 2-bedroom apartments available. So if you're two solo travelers traveling together, and we have a lot of solo travelers, or if you're even two couples, you can occupy one of these beautiful apartments and have that experience. So you have obviously a little bit more room than staying in a typical beach resort hotel. So what's a typical day look like in Mauritius? Well, as you know, with our LiveAways, it's a combination between doing things at your own pace, as well as engaging in the different activities. And of course, one of the other features of our LiveAway programs is that we give you an activity credits built right into the tour price. So you can practically do something every day with that activity credit, again, depending on what it is that you choose to do. Some of the excursions are a little more expensive than others, but you can also just relax on the beach. This is why the Europeans go to Mauritius, just to relax on the beach. But I assert that for us to travel from Canada, we want to do a little bit more than that, because otherwise, if we want to just relax on the beach, we can go to Jamaica or Cuba or something like that. And Mauritius has a lot to it. There's a lot of history here. There's a lot of cross-cultural activities and cuisine and so on that goes on here. So you can do wonderful beach walks in and around Flic. You can go out on your own by taxi to visit sort of nearby towns and so on. But I think the excursions that we have really are what make the experience. And again, this is a view looking down the part of the west coast of Mauritius. So again, the picture does all the talking for it. As I mentioned before, in that southwestern corner of the island is where you have some of these mountains. I actually walked up this one here when I was last there, just to get a bit of a bird's eye view of what's going on. And in the middle of the island, it's agricultural, it's plantations, it's smaller villages. So this is where the tourists don't often go, but it's certainly going to be part of our excursions when we're there. Some of the things that we might do, some of the excursions we're going to be offering, the Black River Gorges, which in fact is, I'm just going to skip back a slide, that is just over this range of mountains here. You find a beautiful area where, again, you won't even realize that you're on an island, with the mountains that rise up and cascading waterfalls all over, and a whole abundance of different wildlife. So this is a place where we'll spend really taking in some of the natural beauty of the island, and as I say, some of these parks. Needless to say, in this part of the world, you have a lot of agricultural products. They grow tea in Mauritius. They produce rum, of course, from the sugarcane, and of course they have vanilla plantations as well. So we have an excursion that takes into a little bit of all of that. We'll visit the largest plantation, the largest tea plantation in this part of the Indian Ocean. Also, as I say, we'll visit sugarcane plantations. We'll get to taste some of the local rum, and of course also enjoy the other spices that are common in this part of the Indian Ocean. So a wonderful way to spend the day. But the historical side of things, as I mentioned, the history here in Mauritius is interesting, because you've been influenced by so many different. I think it started off with the Dutch way back more than 1,000 years ago, and then various other nationalities came in and kicked the other ones out, and so you have a real mix here of particularly Indian influence. You have a French Creole influence. Part of that is obviously an African influence. You have quite a Chinese population here in Mauritius, and so when we visit Marburg, which, as I say, is on the east coast of the island, we get a little bit of a glimpse into the beginnings of Mauritius and all of the things that happened, that contributed to the evolution of this island into the independent country that it is today. And this is the part that I found really fascinating, because again, it's a lot of people go there just to sit on the beach, which is fine, but I found it really fascinating, these different cultural juxtapositions. That being said, you really can't beat the beaches, and going out to the east side of the island. Listen, there's beautiful beaches basically all the way around the island. And when I was there, I drove all the way around the island to have try to have a look at everything. But undoubtedly a highlight was visiting Île aux Cerfs. It's not just the Île aux Cerfs is one principal island, like you can see here. They've got a golf course in the middle of it. And if we have golfers, we can probably arrange for you to go golfing over there. But this archipelago of islands and this extremely light blue colored water, again, I think I've never seen anything quite like it in my life, and crystal clear. A wonderful place. We'll do a boat tour to a number of different islands around. We'll have a barbecue, lunch, seafood on the beach. It's a terrific outing, and a great way to see some of the, as I say, this very, very famous beach and marine landscape they have. Port Louis is the capital city, and famous there for the so-called Jardin de Pamplemousse, the pineapple gardens, the grapefruit gardens. Check my French in there. And they have more than just grapefruit in these gardens, but they're a part of the you know, again, the heritage of that you'll find from Mauritius. And this is where Port Louis is, where all the action is in town. I mean, it really is quite a bustling city. So again, it's nice to get a taste of that aspect as well, and visit some of these, you know, former colonial sites. And there's a terrific restaurant that we're going to be going to visit when we do our day trip out to Port Louis. Of course, a cooking class, I think, is usually one of the most fun activities that you can do on any LiveAway. And Rosemonde is a lovely, lovely lady who actually she was named between her grandmother, I think it was Rosemarie, and her grandfather Raymond, which is how she came up with the name Rosemonde. And she cooks a delicious, we get to learn a delicious array of flavors, Creole-based, Indian influence. And again, this is what I love about Mauritius as well, because one day you're eating dim sum, the next day you're having biryani, and then you're having some, you know, African meat dish. It's incredible. On the southwest part of the island again, you have this wonderful rock formation called the Morne. We'll do a walk up here where you can imagine the views, well, much like you have in the picture here. But this is also quite an important spot, because this is where the slave trade was basically abolished in the early part of the 19th century. And there's quite some legends they have about all of the poor slaves that were hiding out in the caves in the mountain. And, you know, when they came to announce that slavery had been abolished, apparently many of them actually thought that the police were coming to, you know, put them in jail or to put them back into slavery. But in fact, they were coming to free them, and they all jumped off the mountain. So it's quite a story. But as I say, there's a lot of very interesting tales from this relatively small island. It's quite remarkable. And for a lot of people, for those that wish to go up for a helicopter ride, one of the absolute highlights is the so-called underwater waterfall. You can sort of see it in the picture here. It is an optical illusion. You can't actually have a waterfall underwater, but it really does look like the water is plummeting into this chasm, and it's just a function of a deep underwater canyon and the currents that make it appear as if there's an underwater waterfall. So this picture doesn't even do it justice. It's really, really incredible. So for those that wish, that's something to do. And this, I think, is a great picture of the whole south side of the island. So it gives you a bit of an idea of what you're talking about. It is a marine beach coral paradise with so much more to offer. So let me, I'll wrap up Mauritius there. There's lots more I could share with you about that island and what's on offer there. And of course, we have all the details in our program itinerary. But I want to say a few words about Réunion, the second part of our trip. So I'm popping up the map again here just to show you the islands. Réunion is actually a little bit larger than Mauritius in size. But that being said, you can drive kind of from one side of the island to the other in less than 2 hours. And again, partly because this is France. So the infrastructure in Réunion it's like being in Central Europe. I mean, it's remarkable. They have a 4-lane highway that's all on a viaduct that goes all the way around the main city to this part of the island here, because it's all cliffs. Fascinating stuff. And so you have all the benefits that come with it being a European country in the middle of the South Indian Ocean. Saint Pierre, where we'll be staying, is down here in the south. And as I say, from here, you have good access to these incredible volcanic areas, the Piton Fournaise, Cilaos. Let me tell you about all of those. We're going to be staying right across the street from the beach in Saint Pierre in a lovely hotel that I found while I was there. That's how I often find these places, is simply wandering around, because I had taken a number of different ones into account, but I really fell in love with this place. It's a terrific 4-star hotel, obviously with all of the amenities that come with it, but again, right across the street from the beach. It's got a lovely sort of old French colonial charm to it, if I can call it that. You get a sense of that with the 4 poster beds, and so lovely rooms. We have 2 different room categories available in the Villa de L'Isle. And again, of course, it has a spa facility as well. So it's a great base for us to explore the island. So what does a typical day look like in Réunion? Réunion is a little bit different, again, than Mauritius, because you have even more flexibility in that, if you really want to go out and do stuff on your own, they have a public transport system. Just you have the same amenities as you would find in France. So it's relatively easy to get around. And the town where we're staying is quite a large town. So there's a great market in there, wonderful shops, cafes, and of course a beach that I mentioned, which has a reef. So it's a protected beach that you can swim in. So you may find yourself just wandering around, soaking up the atmosphere of the town, or embarking on one of the many excursions that we have here to do. As I say, Réunion it's a paradise for a lot of different kinds of people. For me, I was completely blown away by the mountains and the possibilities of walking and seeing these incredible landscapes. So I would put it as a more active destination for me personally to get the most out of it. But you could also certainly relax and enjoy. And here again, a picture of part of the waterfront at Saint Pierre, where just look at the mountains in the background. It says it all right there. So we've got a number of different things again on the agenda. We'll do a tour up to Saint Louis, which is once again a historical part of Réunion. There's a number of towns here that are testament to the French evolution, not revolution, the French evolution here over the many centuries. And Saint Louis is a lovely town with a lot of sort of, here is where you kind of really feel like you're in France, more so than I would say any other place on the island. So we'll do a tour up there. Saint Pierre, just outside of town, is where they grow sugarcane. And so here's what I want to mention, something that's particularly interesting about the island. I mentioned all the volcanoes, and so you end up having a whole bunch of different climatic zones all in one place. In February, when we're going to be traveling there, this is the warm season. It also can be rainy at this time of the year. It's a great time to visit, I think, because it's certainly going to be tropical warm. Temperatures during the day are likely to be in the high 20s, maybe even peaking out at 30, 31 degrees. So it's going to be warm and a great time to enjoy the beach. But you drive 30 minutes towards the interior of the hill, towards the interior of the island, excuse me, and you'll go up, 1,500 or more meters in elevation. And next thing you know, the temperature drops from 30 to 20. And so you then have the farms where they grow all manner of things that they would grow in Central Europe, for example. And so the sugarcane are obviously at a lower elevation, more, in the tropical belt, if you will, of the island. And it's here, of course, that they produce all of the byproducts of sugar, rum being one of the big ones for there. But as I say, the different climatic zones of the island is something that is really, really fascinating. So if you're sick of the heat, just, hop on a bus or take a car or join one of the excursions, go up to one of the volcanoes, and believe me, it won't be hot anymore. It'll be darn chilly up there. We'll do a boat trip as well, of course, just as in Mauritius, to explore some of the marine flora and fauna. They have 6 different species of dolphins that swim in the waters off of Réunion. There's a good chance to see all of them. We'll also visit an amazing turtle giant, like I've forgotten the name, the big turtles, the tortoises, where they hatch them and are trying to rehabilitate the population that has, of course, been so decimated over the centuries. So we'll have a great day doing that. Again, this picture sort of says it all right here. This is Pichon du Maido, so another one of the volcanic peaks. And we'll go up here. We can drive up to about 2,200 meters in the elevation. And so, you can imagine you're going from sea level all the way up there. So very bendy, windy roads, but with incredible vistas all over the place. And here you'll already get some glimpse about the volcanic aspect of the island. And on the way back down, we visit arguably the most touristically popular village on the island, which is called Saint Paul. and has a lovely beach as well. And we've got a great restaurant lined up for a lunch on the beach in Saint Paul. So a great day to explore the interior of the island. I mentioned Cilaos. This is the gateway of the Piton des Neiges. We're not going to be climbing the Piton des Neiges at 3,000 meters above sea level. It's I think a little bit above our, although if anybody really wants to, I certainly welcome you to. But Cilaos, as a result of being in a sort of almost, it's not really a crater, but in the valley between these different volcanoes, is a geothermal area. And of course, they've got hot springs and so on everywhere. So as we make our way up to Cilaos, we will get some insight from our local guide about how geothermal activity plays a role in not just, using it for power sources, but also as a spa, and it's beloved for that reason. We'll take a trip down to the south coast of the island. So a lot of the population is in the very north of the island, around where the airport is the principal city, and then going down the west coast. But when you get down around the south, it's completely wild, and the coastline is just breathtaking. It's just one of those places where I feel like when you're driving along, you just want to stop every 5 minutes and take pictures. And that was my experience driving along the south coast of Réunion, and a number of great things to see there. And I'll let you indulge yourself in the program itinerary for the details on all of that. The Piton de la Fournaise is the other main volcano, and this is the one that actually most people will visit because it's a little bit more accessible. It's not quite as high as the Piton des Neiges, but it is actually considered to be one of the most active volcanoes in the world. And so we will have a chance to go up to the rim of the broader crater around the Piton de la Fournaise. So you'll get an amazing view like this, and you'll be able to see all of this, these massive lava fields. I mean, it's absolutely huge. You can sort of see the people walking down here. For those that are super active, there is a hike. I did it, that you can take all the way up to the top of this volcano. It's a tough one, I can tell you that. So we'll decide that when we get there, if anybody wants. But in any event, just going up to this point here and seeing this huge crater, and gaining an understanding into all of this volcanic activity and what's been happening is one of the most amazing things that you can do while you're in Réunion. And then, of course, fishing plays a huge role in Réunion, and Terre Sainte is really the principal fishing village, if you will. And this is where, this is the part like walking back in time, because the fishermen still practice some of the ancient techniques and, pulling out the nets by hand and all the rest of it. And it's kind of refreshing to see. And so a great little side trip to do. And so many other things, as I say. I mean, I think that I've even mentioned more than you could probably even do than a week, but we want to give our members that join us on this trip a lot of different options on things to do. So that gives you a little bit of a quick summary about what Mauritius and Réunion are all about. I will quickly breeze through the additional information. You can book either of these as separate weeks, so you don't, although we are doing it, putting it out together as Mauritius and Réunion, you can do just Mauritius or just Réunion. Now, of course, you think that's a long way to go for 7 nights. So I'm not going to dwell on all these pages here, because of course, all the information is in our program itinerary. But this program fits in between our LiveAway programs in Koh Samui and in Bali. So you could, for example, go and spend a couple of weeks in Thailand, and then you could come and spend 2 weeks in Mauritius and Réunion. You'd have a whole month, and then go back to Canada. Or you could go the other way, and you could come here first and do either Mauritius or Réunion. Well, you'd have to kind of do both Mauritius and Réunion, and then continue from there and do 2 weeks in Thailand, and then continue on and do Bali, for example. So if you're looking for an extended tropical getaway, this is kind of the way to do it and the rationale. Or of course, you can spend the 14 nights in these wonderful islands. And of course, you can spend more because a lot of our members ask, and we're happy to facilitate early arrivals or later departures if you wanted to stay longer on either of the islands. So the program, as with all of our programs, you know, we have your accommodation, and I've shown you the type of places that we've selected for this. We have breakfast, not at all of the places. At the Sugar Beach Resort, for example, we have breakfast included, as well as in Réunion, but at the apartment accommodations, of course, they don't have breakfast available. So there's just some nuances there. But the main thing is, of course, with our LiveAways, you have the activity credit. So it's $1,000 per week that it will enable you to do a lot of the activities that we have featured in here, and you get to choose. Now that, you know, that being said, we can't guarantee that they will all happen because we need to have a critical number, but we're trying to work it out so that we can manage to run as many of the excursions as possible. Yeah, based on what where our members want to go and what they want to see. So the exclusions for these programs are, of course, airfare and breakfast, as I mentioned, at the 2-bedroom apartments in Mauritius, and then your insurance. So we can help you out with the airfare, and I will just speak to that for a moment. I said it at the outset. How do you get there? Air France is probably the best connection. There are other options, though. You can fly Emirates via Dubai. You can fly. Just one out of my mind. One of the other Middle Eastern carriers to get down to Mauritius from Réunion and Mauritius. Actually, the best option is really Air France via Paris, because they have a connection from Canada to Paris, and then from there nonstop to both spots. And then, as I was saying before, if you were contemplating doing it in conjunction with Thailand, they have a nonstop flight that goes between Réunion and Bangkok, and it's about 8 hours. I took it; it's actually a great flight. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of that, and in terms of costs, I was just checking not too long before we got on the webinar, and I was looking at flights out of Toronto to Mauritius and coming back from Réunion. It was actually coming out at about $1,600 starting. So, but this is the range that you're likely looking at for depending on the routing that you want to take. And as I say, you might want to combine it with Asia and go all the way around the world. Wouldn't that be fun? We are able here to offer our early booking bonus, which would be $250 for each week. So $500 if you do both. And that's going to be good up until the end of July. Longer if we can swing it, but we promised that our hotel partners down there that we would see if we could get some folks booked on early on, and they're happy to extend a little bit of a reduction for us for that. So if you're keen, sooner the better. And so we're about to get into the Q&A, Barb, but of course, if anybody has any questions that might come up at some other time after the webinar, please do give us a call, drop us an email. Paul and Barb are always happy to. You're always happy to answer questions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a couple that have come in. So great. One question from Helen is, she's asking, is there enough time in Mauritius to do all these wonderful activities?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. There is enough time. Sorry, I'm going to go back. I think a week is a good amount of time to spend in Mauritius. If you're somebody like Helen, who wants to do everything, if you do everything in a week, you will have a good sense of the island. If you are somebody that really wants to sort of chill and relax on the beach, and you could definitely do that and find more things to do and stay 2 weeks. But as far as we're concerned, I was there for 5 days in November, and I'm kind of I race around like crazy, so I'm not like what our members aspire to be. But I felt that a week was enough. That's why we made it a week in Mauritius, and the same thing in Réunion. However, as I say, we're happy to accommodate you if you want to stay for longer, you can do it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Rick is asking if this sort of this LiveAway ties into any of our South Africa trips.
It doesn't tie into South Africa at the present time. We may tie it in the future, but part of it is just a question of timing in terms of when is the optimal time to go to the right places in South Africa. And this time is great to come to Mauritius and Réunion. It's not necessarily the best time for wildlife viewing in South Africa. So yeah, I always have that in the back of my mind. But for the moment, it's more likely that we would offer one of these programs in the future in conjunction with an African safari trip at a different time of the year. But like any of these places, the problem always is it's ideal weather and conditions here, but then over here, not so much, even though it doesn't seem that far away, but it's it's not optimal.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And then can you give an idea of what sort of the group size we're taking?
You're going to keep this. I would say we will take a maximum of 20 on this. In fact, I think we only have space for 20. And so even so, the excursions, as normal with our LiveAways, will typically be any of the excursions that we do overland will be in a minibus. So probably 8-9 people. So if we had everybody signing up for one trip, we would just do it twice. With the boat trips, we can go with a few more people, but the overall group size, we're going to keep it pretty small, but it could be as small as 10 or 12. We'll see.
Right. Okay, perfect. Those are the questions that have come in so far. Yeah, I think we have an additional information document coming. So if people are wondering about entry requirements and currency and more nitty-gritty stuff, they can just contact me and I will send that out to them individually. They can call or email in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. So yeah, by all means, if there are any other questions, just drop us a note. We have wonderful partners in both Mauritius and Réunion. For some reason, we don't have the answer here. We will get it for you pretty much by the next day. So, I'm very excited about this program. It's been long awaited in coming out, but it's finally here. I hope you'll join us. It's a wonderful part of the world, one that you probably might not have thought of going to before, but certainly well worth it. So thanks so much for your time today. And lots more webinars coming up this week. So if you didn't check last week's newsletter, I don't know, Barb, if you got a list of them. I know that we've got our 2 Italy programs on Wednesday morning.
Hike Patagonia, the new one coming
tomorrow
up.
is hiking in Patagonia, another brand new program, a first of our active programs in Argentina for Patagonia. So if you're interested in that, same time tomorrow. And as I say, both our South Italy sojourn, a brand new program to Puglia and the Amalfi region, as well as our Tuscany and San Marino sojourn. Those programs are going to be presented on Wednesday morning. Good. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Have yourselves a great rest of the day, and we will catch up to you all very, very soon. Thanks, Barb.